Today we have a fun subject. We are going to take a look at the film adaptations of the Richard Matheson classic, I Am Legend. The films to be examined include The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, The Omega Man with Charlton Heston, I Am Legend with Will Smith, and I Am Omega with Mark Dacascos. I'll also be bringing up George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead, the graphic novel for I Am Legend by Steve Niles, and 28 Days Later from director Danny Boyle. Before we get into the movies, let's take a look at the man himself, Richard Matheson. Matheson was born on February 20th, 1926, in Allendale, New Jersey. He graduated from Brooklyn Technical High School and would serve in the Army in World War II. Post-war, he earned his BA from the Missouri School of Journalism. Soon after, he moved to California. Between the 1950s and the 1970s, Matheson had many of his short stories featured in literary anthologies. In 1954, he published I Am Legend, followed by The Shrinking Man 2 years later. Other works include Legend of Hell House, A Stir of Echoes, and What Dreams May Come. There are no shortage of writings with his name attached that are well worth your time. Matheson became a prominent writer for the TV series The Twilight Zone. Of the over dozen episodes he penned, the most memorable would be Nightmare at 20,000 Feet with William Shatner. He adapted the works of Edgar Allan Poe for producer-director Roger Corman during the 1960s. In the 1970s, he wrote the screenplay for the made-for-TV adaptation of Duel, directed by Steven Spielberg and starring Dennis Weaver. He partnered with producer Dan Curtis for the pair of Carl Kolchak TV movies, The Night Stalker and The Night Strangler, in addition to the trilogy of terror films. Sadly, he passed away in June 23rd, 2013. Alright, there are going to be some spoilers here. Let's get into the movies. Dr. Robert Morgan is the last man on Earth. He is the last human alive in a world infested with lumbering vampires, the victims of a bacterial plague that swept the world. By day, he goes through the monotony of survival, taking stock, making wooden stakes, checking the city map for hunting spots, staking any vampires he finds, taking their bodies to the burning pit. Every day he does the same series of activities over and over again. Then, when night falls, he must hide in the shelter of his home with the windows boarded, music playing to cover the sound of the vampires trying to break in. He drinks while the music plays, looking towards the ruckus outside with a look on his face that suggests he hopes they break in and put him out of his misery. The head of these vampires is Ben Cortman, once his friend and colleague, now a shell of his former self. In a flashback, we see how Dr. Morgan's world became as it is. He was a scientist studying the bacteria. They show the traditional signs of the vampire: repulsed by garlic, hide during daylight, killed by stakes into the heart. One day, Morgan finds a dog and chases it down. After being alone for so long, Morgan is desperate for someone or something to end his loneliness. While looking for the dog, he finds some of the vampires have been killed with iron fence posts. Are there other people alive besides him? The Last Man on Earth was the first adaptation of Matheson's I Am Legend. For the most part, the film follows the plot progression of the book. Yet, Matheson was not happy with the final product. Originally, he was to be credited by name in the film, but later asked to change it. Matheson would be credited under the pseudonym Logan Swanson. One of the striking elements of the film is the makeup of the lumbering vampires. The clothes of the vampires implies that they were once common people, the everyday citizen, now a monster. Put them side by side with the ghouls of Romero's Night of the Living Dead, and one likely couldn't tell the difference. They could have been in the same movie. Okay, I'm about to go off on a tangent, but it's connected to The Last Man on Earth. In addition to Herc Harvey's Carnival of Souls from 1962, Last Man on Earth had an influence on Romero's Night of the Living Dead. The look of the zombies, the apocalyptic scenario of the dead coming back to life and attacking the living, the means of disposing the bodies. All of this inspired Romero to make Night of the Living Dead from The Last Man on Earth. In typical Matheson fashion, he was not impressed with Romero's film. Sidney Salcow and Ubaldo Ragona share the directorial credit. If I had to guess, Salcow handled most of the American-released content, while Ragona handled the European content. Ragona has only 4 films to his credit. Many of them have fallen into obscurity, save for The Last Man on Earth. In contrast to Ragona, Salcow handled a lot of material in the field of both television and film. 77 Sunset Strip, The Addams Family, Mike Hammer, and Maverick represent a small sample of his TV work. The most recognizable film in his career would be Twice Told Tales, an anthology film centered on short stories of Nathaniel Hawthorne. The music by Bert Schefter and Paul Sautel does a fine job of setting the mood for the film. Both men previously provided the music for another Price classic, The Fly. But the opening credits music doesn't quite gel with the happenings on screen. You have this tense, sweeping music playing while Morgan does some fairly mundane tasks and upkeep. Seeing Vincent Price as Dr. Robert Morgan, the lead of the film, was a nice surprise. I've only ever seen him in either a supporting role or as the villain, whether it's House on Haunted Hill, The Tingler, House of Wax, Theater of Blood, Great Mouse Detective, Edward Scissorhands, The Raven, The Mask of the Red Death, and so many more. He made a niche for himself in genre cinema, but with Last Man on Earth, he's cast against type. Giacomo Rossi Stewart plays Ben Cortman, the once friend to Morgan but now a vampire. Not at all familiar with him as an actor. I know of the film The Night Evelyn Came Out of Her Grave, but haven't seen it. Backlog is killing me. He was in one of the many spaghetti westerns to invoke anti-hero Django, and that film would be Kill Django, Kill First. Yet the character of Django does not appear in the film. Emma Danieli, as Virginia Morgan, actually had the scariest moment for me in the film. When the plague takes his wife, Morgan chooses to bury her instead of cremating her. She comes back to Morgan. When he opens the door and she slowly walks into the light, it's a scary sequence. She has a dead look in her eyes, yet she calls out to Morgan. It's an unforgettable moment in a decent horror film. And that's all I can say about The Last Man on Earth. It's a decent movie and a solid effort to bring Matheson's novel to the screen. However, it may just be too slow for some in the horror crowd. It is in the public domain, so it is easy to find. If the film being slow is the problem, then allow me to recommend the next film in this episode.
The last man on Earth lives in a fortress.
What day is it anyway? Monday? The hell it is. It's Sunday. Sunday, I always dress for dinner. Discovered check. How does that grab you, Caesar?
The last man on Earth always carries an automatic weapon. The last man on Earth is hunting. Because the last man on Earth is not alone.
Dr. Robert Neville is the sole survivor of a viral outbreak that has wiped out all life on Earth. Yet he is not alone. Some of the victims of the virus have reanimated and formed a cult devoted to wiping out any remains of the past, be it books, works of art, or the last living human being. Every night is a fight for survival for Neville. In a flashback, we see he worked on a possible cure, a cure that was ready for experimentation. While in transit via helicopter, both the pilot and Neville succumb to the virus. Neville survives the crash and injects himself with the untested serum. Miraculously, the serum worked. One day, Neville finds another survivor like him, a girl named Lisa. She leads him to a small camp of those whom the infection hasn't overtaken yet. Neville figures he could use his blood as a serum. Not only could he save the camp, but he could also possibly save the cult that's been trying to kill him. The opening scene does a fantastic job of setting the movie. The shots of desolate Los Angeles made for a jaw-dropping sight decades before the opening shots of 28 Days Later. Cinematographer Russell Meddy and director Boris Segal get a lot of mileage out of those brief but effective scenes. The editing of William Ziegler maintains the tense, frantic pace needed to keep the audience engaged. The music score by Ron Grainer is a highlight of the film. His rendition of A Summer Place is a nice contrast to the unsettling calm of the opening cityscape. The theme music has a mystique to it that brings in viewers into Neville's world. Charlton Heston as Neville fits Matheson's description of the character. It's easy to buy Heston as the scientist as well as the badass. The scenes where he's acting with a bust of Caesar or talking to a movie in a theater are just as entertaining and impressive as him with other actors. Heston also goes through an arc that shows his character's emotional development when he finally meets other living humans. He can be a really good actor when given the right material. Anthony Zerbe deserves credit as Matthias, the cult leader that is constantly going after Neville, and he is a fitting antagonist. He's smart, he's resourceful, he's charismatic. He also has a strong motivation. The past is what led to the apocalypse, so of course his character will go to great lengths to prevent the vicious cycle from repeating. In a previous life, Matthias was a news broadcaster, and Anthony Zerbe delivers a chilling, haunting warning that is just as compelling now as it was, what has it been now, almost 50 years ago. I wish I could find the clip of this wonderful monologue, but you'll have to settle for me reciting it. So now the question is survival. Is this the end of technological man? Is this the conclusion of all our yesterdays? The boasts of science, the superhuman conquests of space and time, the age of the wheel. We were warned of judgment. Well, it's come. Now, this is the judgment, the weeping and gnashing of teeth. Oh God, where will it end? Rosalind Cash as Lisa brings some appeal to black and female audiences. She is more than capable of handling herself with Heston. On a few occasions, she keeps Neville in his place. Her role coincides with the rising trend, if not slightly predating blaxploitation, and serves as a prototype for the likes of Pam Grier. Others in the supporting cast give a lot for Heston to work off of. Eric Laneuville and Paul Coso stand out among the group of human survivors. Lincoln Kilpatrick and Linda Redfern have their moments as members of Matthias's cult. If there were any problems with the film, it's likely grounded in opinion. Some may not like the approach of action taken to such a contemplative narrative. It does take its share of creative liberties, but still manages to be fun, even tense at times, for a piece of science fiction. While not the first film to tackle Matheson's iconic work, The Omega Man remains a favorite of many. I would have to say that this film is my favorite as well among the adaptations of I Am Legend. There is just enough of the novel to satiate my inner bookworm, and much thought went into the film itself to appease my film fandom. Before I go into the next film, I do need to discuss 28 Days Later. Released in 2003, while not a real adaptation of I Am Legend, it made an impression on director Francis Lawrence, who would direct I Am Legend with Will Smith. He was in the process of pre-production of I Am Legend when he saw 28 Days Later. His immediate reaction was that someone got the jump on him. Okay, stop me if you've heard this one before. Robert Neville is the last man on Earth, but he is not alone. He is taking shelter in New York City. The outbreak began with a modified version of the measles virus. This modification was believed to be a cure for cancer. Unfortunately, over 90% of the recipients died, and 9% of those exposed to the supposed cure for cancer turned into infected vampiric monsters known as Darkseekers. For years, Neville sent out radio messages in the hopes of other survivors. One night, he goes after the Darkseekers in a suicidal rage. Just as he's about done for, he's rescued by a woman and a child. They manage to get him to safety as the sun rises. When Neville recovers, he is uneasy about the woman and the child. They tell him about a safe haven in Bethel, Vermont. Neville doesn't believe them. He believes there is no possible way for others to survive. But up to that point, Neville thought he was the only one left alive. Could there be others? Could there actually be a safe haven? You can definitely feel the influence of 28 Days Later on this film. Granted, this was in the midst of the zombie renaissance that included the remake of Dawn of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead, 28 Weeks Later, and many, many more. The strongest aspect of 2007's I Am Legend would be the atmosphere. Seeing a post-outbreak New York City was great, but I can't help but feel Smith was acting in a giant green screen room. New York City lacked that practical punch of the post-outbreak Los Angeles in the Omega Man. Seeing sections of a major metropolis in a desolate state for real can't be outmatched by a few computer artists. My biggest gripe with I Am Legend is the use of CGI rotoscoping over the actors playing the Darkseekers. CGI monsters just don't work. Call me old-fashioned, but showing real actors under creepy makeup would have had a much bigger impression. This would also have been much scarier. Who's afraid of dead-eyed Zemeckis-caliber CGI characters? Okay, when you put it that way, it makes sense to be scared of them, but you know what I mean. Before directing the 2007 release of I Am Legend, Francis Lawrence helmed the film adaptation for comic character John Constantine, starring Keanu Reeves. Much like with I Am Legend, Constantine has some great moments, but the reliance on special effects took me out of the film. There was another ending to the film which I am a much bigger fan of. During the climactic invasion of the Darkseekers, we find that the alpha of the pack has been seeking his mate, who was taken by Neville. All this time we believe the Darkseekers to be the monsters, but Neville was actually the monster. That's a pretty gutsy ending, but test audiences didn't like it. They felt Smith sacrificing himself and still retaining his good guy image was the better ending.
Fucking bullshit!
Will Smith is Will Smith. Here was an opportunity for him to play a character that wasn't an extension of himself, or him sneaking a bit of Will Smith in a character that isn't Will Smith. When he interacts with the child as he watches Shrek, this is Will Smith putting himself in the role, as opposed to Will Smith going outside of his safety zone. Alice Braga, for me, was introduced late into this film for her to have a strong presence, although the film does a nice swerve. Given past iterations of the I Am Legend story, her character turns out to be a member of a race of civilized vampires. But this film makes her out to be right about the refuge in Vermont. While making sporadic appearances pre-I Am Legend, she found a lot of work in films like Repo Men, Predators, TV's Queen of the South, and even the upcoming, if it's still in existence, New Mutants. The actor who provided the motion capture for the Alpha was Dash Mihawk. He's got a few credits to his name: TV's Gotham, Silver Linings Playbook, and Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. But for me, he's always going to be Detective Soap from Punisher Warzone. I Am Legend has style and atmosphere, but the lead role in CGI vampires keep me from praising this movie. It's the most high-profile adaptation of Matheson's novel, but not the best. I Am Omega opens with a woman and her son packing up and trying to get away in their car, but they are attacked by zombies and killed. This was a flashback sequence as our hero, Renchard, wakes up in his semi-fortified home. In a last-ditch effort to contain the infection, he sets bombs at various locations throughout the city. One day, he receives a transmission from a woman named Brianna. She tells him she needs to get to Antioch, a survivor community. Not long after, two men, Mike and Vincent, show up at Renchard's home, claiming to be from Antioch. They force him to cooperate. The trio manage to find Brianna and get out of the city. However, one of the men dies and the other shoots Renchard, leaving him for dead. Renchard recovers and goes to free Brianna before the city explodes. Yes, this is an Asylum movie. If you don't know who Asylum is, allow me to fill you in. Asylum is a film production company that specializes in what are called mockbusters. These are the type of movies that are rushed into production so they can be released around the same time as a major Hollywood blockbuster film. While Michael Bay made Transformers, Asylum made Transmorphers. When Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter was released, Abraham Lincoln vs. Zombies was unleashed around the same time. Many other titles just speak for themselves. Snakes on a Train, The Da Vinci Treasure, Almighty Thor, Atlantic Rim. They gave us the Sharknado series. They also did Nazis at the Center of the Earth, which I will openly admit that I liked, even more so than the film they tried to capitalize on, Iron Sky. With I Am Omega, the Asylum brought this film to audiences 1 month before the Will Smith starring I Am Legend, in the hopes to capitalize on that film's anticipation. All the while, it lifts some of the title from the Omega Man. Richard Matheson was uncredited, which I'm sure he's totally fine with. The scale of the film is as small as one would expect and with a minimal cast. 4 main actors, and maybe 7 or 8 actors dressed as zombies. Asylum does what they can with limited resources. Director Griff first started with Asylum before finding a steady career in Hollywood. Early roles include Dead Men Walking and Transmorphers. Mainstream acting credits had him in films like Green Lantern, Battleship, Trumbo, and the Magnificent Seven remake. He's been a writer, producer, editor, second unit director, and cinematographer. He knows his way around a movie set. Jeff Mead played Vincent, but also wrote the script. He manages to take I Am Omega and deviate it from the Matheson source material. I'll give him props for trying to make this film stand on its own. Mead wasn't above putting in some cheeky references to Omega Man. For example, the moment when Renchard reacts to a radio going off.
There is no radio.
Now, where have I heard that before? Oh, yeah.
There is no phone ringing, damn it!
I'm well aware that Mark Dacascos has his following. Double Dragon, The Island of Dr. Moreau, Brotherhood of the Wolf, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the upcoming John Wick Chapter 3. In I Am Omega, he's not a captivating enough lead for me. He lacks the qualities that we see in the previous main characters. There was a sense of calculation in Vincent Price, a determination in Charlton Heston, and a charisma in Will Smith. He does his best with what he's given, but it's not good enough. He shines in action roles and as a supporting player. I appreciate that Asylum allows people to get their foot in the door when it comes to filmmaking. That said, I Am Omega is the weakest offering when it comes to adaptations of Matheson's I Am Legend. I imagine if you're a diehard Dacascos fan, you'll be able to sit through this, but this film will be a test of your patience. Before I close, I wanted to address the Steve Niles graphic novel for I Am Legend. I can't recommend it. Graphic novels are a visual art form. The images need to tell the story much more than the text. Yet, there are pictures where the text from Matheson's novel overtakes the artwork by Elman Brown. I couldn't get into it. And that finishes this look at the film adaptations of I Am Legend. Out of the 4 films discussed, I found myself coming back to the Omega Man with Charlton Heston. It's by far the best one of the four. Until next time, this is Mackenzie Lambert with Mack the Movies. Take care, folks.